There's a particular kind of anxiety that lives in the chest of a 65-year-old who has just retired. It's not the panic of youth. It's quieter, deeper. It's the anxiety of someone who knows they cannot afford to be wrong twice. And in January of 2026, when the Social Security Administration announced a 2.8% cost of living adjustment, that anxiety stirred in living rooms and kitchen tables across America. Because for the first time in decades, millions of retirees faced a question they hadn't quite prepared for. If my Social Security check is going up by less than 3% and everything else seems to cost more, what does that mean for the money I'm pulling from my savings? Before we go further, let me be clear. Nothing in this video is personalized financial advice. I'm not your advisor. I don't know your situation. I'm just a voice offering perspective, clarity, and perhaps a little peace. What you do with your money is yours to decide. But if you're someone who values calm, rational thinking about retirement, then you're in the right place. And if this resonates with you, leave a comment below. Tell me where you are in your journey, and if you haven't already, subscribe. This channel exists to cut through the noise and deliver the kind of financial wisdom that doesn't shout, but settles. So here's the question we're sitting with. How should a modest cost of living adjustment change the way you think about withdrawing money from your nest egg? Let's begin with what that 2.8% actually represents. It's an increase. That much is true. If you were receiving $1,800 a month in Social Security in 2025, you're now receiving about $50 more each month in 2026. Over a year, that's $600. It's not nothing, but it's also not enough to keep pace with the rising cost of health care, housing, or food if inflation continues to run above 3%. And that gap, that quiet shortfall, is where the real tension lives for retirees who are drawing down their portfolios. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Social Security was never designed to be your entire income. It was designed to be a foundation, a floor. And for most retirees, that floor needs to be supplemented by withdrawals from IRAs, 401s, ILACAs, brokerage accounts, pensions, or other sources of income. The math is simple. If your expenses are $4,000 a month and Social Security covers $2,000, you're pulling $2,000 from somewhere else every single month. And when that $2,000 has to stretch further because prices are rising faster than your COLA, the pressure on your portfolio intensifies. This is where safe withdrawal strategy comes into focus. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, let me offer a gentle explanation. A safe withdrawal strategy is simply a plan for how much money you can take out of your retirement savings each year without running the risk of outliving your money. The most famous guideline is the 4% rule, which suggests that if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio in the first year of retirement and then adjust that amount each year for inflation, your money should last 30 years. It's a rule born out of historical analysis, and for decades, it gave retirees a sense of structure, a number to anchor to. But here's what's changed. The 4% rule was built on assumptions about stock and bond returns that no longer hold in quite the same way. Interest rates have been volatile. Market valuations have been high. Inflation has been unpredictable. And life expectancy has increased. A 65-year-old today might live to 95. That's 30 years of withdrawals, 30 years of uncertainty. 30 years where sequence of returns risk, the danger of poor market performance early in retirement, can devastate a portfolio before it ever has a chance to recover. So when Social Security's cost of living adjustment comes in at 2.8% and inflation hovers somewhere above 3, retirees are left with a gap, a quiet erosion of purchasing power. And the instinct, the very human instinct, is to make up that gap by pulling more from savings. An extra 100 here, 200 there. It doesn't feel like much in the moment, but over time, those small increases compound into something dangerous. Because every additional dollar you withdraw today is a dollar that can't grow tomorrow. It's a dollar that can't compound. It's a dollar that won't be there in 10 years when you might need it more. And this is where discipline becomes everything, not the rigid, joyless kind of discipline that makes you feel deprived, but the calm, steady discipline that understands the difference between needing more and wanting more. The discipline that says, I will not panic. I will not let a modest COLA adjustment make me feel poor. I will not betray my plan because the headlines are loud and my neighbors are spending freely. Because here's what I've come to believe after years of studying retirees who make it work. The ones who sleep well at night aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most clarity. They know what they spend. They know what they have. They know what they need. And they've built a withdrawal strategy that doesn't require perfection from the market, from the government, or from themselves. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Margaret. She's 72, widowed, lives in a modest home in the Midwest. Her Social Security is about $2,200 a month. She has $400,000 in a mix of retirement accounts. And for the first 5 years of her retirement, she followed the 4% rule religiously. $16,000 a year, $1,300 and change per month. Combined with Social Security, she had about $3,500 a month to live on. It was tight, but it worked. Then came 2022. Inflation spiked. Her grocery bill went up. Her utilities climbed. Her property taxes increased. And her portfolio dropped 15%. Suddenly, that 4% withdrawal felt dangerous. She started pulling more, not recklessly, just a little more, enough to feel safe, enough to not feel poor. But by the end of 2023, she'd withdrawn nearly 6% of her portfolio. And that's when the fear set in, because she ran the numbers. If she kept that pace, her money would run out before she turned 85. So she made a choice. She didn't cut her spending to the bone. She didn't move in with her daughter. She didn't panic. She just recalibrated. She went back to her withdrawal plan and asked herself a hard question. What can I control? She couldn't control Social Security's COLA. She couldn't control inflation. She couldn't control the stock market. But she could control her spending, not by living miserably, but by living intentionally. She canceled subscriptions she didn't use. She switched to a cheaper cell phone plan. She started cooking more and eating out less. She refinanced her car insurance, small things, boring things. But over the course of a year, she shaved $400 a month off her expenses. And that $400 meant she could go back to her original withdrawal rate without feeling deprived. Her portfolio stabilized, her anxiety eased. She found peace not by earning more or getting lucky, but by being honest about what mattered. And that's the lesson I want you to sit with. The 2.8% COLA isn't the problem. The problem is letting it become an excuse to abandon your plan. The problem is thinking that because Social Security didn't keep up with inflation, you need to compensate by pulling more from your savings without adjusting anything else. The problem is treating your portfolio like a checking account instead of a well that needs to be carefully rationed over decades. Because here's the blunt truth. If you're 65 today and you're withdrawing 5 or 6% of your portfolio every year, the math doesn't work. It just doesn't. You might get lucky. The market might cooperate. But luck is not a strategy, and hoping is not a plan. The only thing you can truly rely on is your ability to live within your means, to adjust when conditions change, and to resist the cultural pressure to spend as if you're still earning. Now, let me address the other side of this. The retirees who are so terrified of running out of money that they barely spend anything at all. The ones who have $1 million saved and still feel poor. The ones who clip coupons and deny themselves simple joys because they're haunted by the fear of destitution. This is just as destructive. Because retirement isn't just about not running out of money. It's about living. It's about having enough peace to enjoy the years you worked so hard to reach. So the question isn't just how much can I safely withdraw. The question is, how much do I actually need to feel secure and fulfilled? And that number is different for everyone. For some, it's $3,000 a month. For others, it's $6,000. The number itself doesn't matter as much as the honesty with which you arrive at it. And here's where the 2.8% COLA can actually be useful. It's a reminder, a signal, a chance to re-examine your withdrawal strategy and ask, am I still on track? Have I adjusted for reality? Am I being disciplined without being miserable? Because the retirees who thrive aren't the ones who get the best returns. They're the ones who know themselves well enough to build a plan they can stick to. Let me give you a framework, a simple way to think about safe withdrawals in this environment. Start with your fixed income. That's Social Security, any pensions, any annuities. That's the money you can count on every month, no matter what the market does. Then calculate your essential expenses: housing, food, healthcare, insurance, utilities, the non-negotiables. If your fixed income covers your essentials, you're in a strong position. You can afford to be flexible with your portfolio withdrawals because you're not relying on them for survival. But if your fixed income doesn't cover your essentials, then your withdrawal rate becomes critical. And in that case, I'd urge you to be conservative. 3%, maybe 3.5%. Not because I want you to live poorly, but because I want you to live without fear. I want you to sleep at night knowing that even if the market drops 20% next year, you'll be okay. And if that means cutting expenses, then cut them. Not with resentment, but with clarity. Because every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that stays invested, a dollar that compounds, a dollar that might be worth $2 in 10 years. That's the magic of not touching your principal. That's the gift of discipline. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but I worked my whole life. I saved. I sacrificed. Don't I deserve to enjoy my retirement? And the answer is yes. Of course you do. But enjoyment doesn't require excess. It doesn't require keeping up with the neighbors or buying things you don't need to impress people you don't like. True enjoyment, the kind that lasts, comes from freedom. And freedom comes from living below your means, from knowing that you're secure, from having margin. There's a kind of peace that comes from looking at your bank account and knowing you could weather a storm, a market crash, a healthcare emergency, a decade of modest colas. That peace is worth more than any purchase, more than any vacation, more than any status symbol, and it's available to you if you're willing to be intentional. So here's what I'd encourage you to do. Sit down with your numbers, all of them, your Social Security, your savings, your monthly expenses, your withdrawal rate, and ask yourself, is this sustainable? Can I do this for 30 years? If the answer is yes, then breathe. You're fine. If the answer is no, then adjust. Not with panic, but with purpose. Maybe that means working part-time for a few more years. Maybe it means downsizing. Maybe it means cutting back on discretionary spending. Maybe it means delaying Social Security to get a higher benefit later. Maybe it means converting some of your portfolio to an annuity for guaranteed income. There are options. There are always options, but they require honesty. They require facing the numbers without flinching. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you do that, once you build a plan that's grounded in reality, you can stop worrying. You can stop checking the market every day. You can stop reading every headline about inflation and colas and recessions, because you'll know that your plan accounts for all of it. You'll know that you've built margin. You'll know that you're okay. That's what rational retirement looks like. It's not flashy. It's not exciting. It doesn't make for good cocktail party conversation, but it works, and it lasts, and it lets you sleep at night. I think about the retirees I admire most, the ones who made it to 90 with dignity and peace. They didn't have the most money. They didn't get the highest returns. They didn't time the market perfectly, but they had something better. They had clarity. They had discipline. They had the wisdom to know that enough is enough. And they had the courage to live accordingly. So, as you think about this 2.8% COLA, don't let it rattle you. Don't let it become a reason to abandon your plan or pull more than you should. Instead, let it be a reminder, a nudge, a chance to reassess and recommit. Because the goal isn't to die with the most money. The goal is to live well, sleep soundly, and leave this world knowing you were wise with what you had. And if you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for trusting me with something as personal as your financial future. I don't take that lightly. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. Subscribe if you haven't. And remember, retirement isn't about perfection. It's about peace. And peace comes not from having more, but from needing less. Until next time, be well, be wise, and be kind to yourself.